Womenpreneurs Radio Network. I'm your host, Danette Moss, and joining me today is Rochelle Carter, publisher and founder at Ellechor Media LLC, an award-winning publishing company with 3 imprints. She is the author of the 7-Step Guide to Authorpreneurship, a book widely endorsed by best-selling authors and industry professionals that is designed to help authors have a successful career. She has received national recognition for her leadership and professional achievements, and her imprints have published over 40 books in less than 3 years, 98% of which enjoy 4-star of higher Amazon ratings. Welcome, Rochelle, to our show today. How are you?
Thank you, Danette. I'm very excited to be here. A little tired from my book launch last night, but I'm ready to go for you guys.
Wow, I can't wait for you to tell us more about how that book launch was. I'm sure it was a success.
Thank you. It was. I don't want to go too much into it, but I did a speaking engagement for women entrepreneurs of Oregon, and it was a beautiful dinner, a beautiful book signing, and the wonderful women there learned about how to build their business by writing a book, and they were all really, really excited to get started. So fingers crossed that I'm going to have some success stories out of it.
I'm sure you will. Well, let's go ahead and get down to the nitty-gritty. And, I really want to start out asking you this number one question, especially with you being a publishing company. Why do business owners need to start thinking about publishing?
Well, Danette, the interesting thing is that for business owners, they feel like I went into business, I didn't sign up to be an author, that's not an interest for me. Or some of them really think, oh, I really have a book in me, but I don't really know what to do, or I have too much to think about, and I just don't want to waste my time, right? But as a business owner, it's almost even more critical for you to be someone who publishes a book because it demonstrates your expertise. It increases your credibility and your status. It expands opportunities for media and speaking, and it creates multiple streams of income. So it's a win-win-win-win-win. When you're a business owner and you've got your own book, it's a tool that you can leverage to break out into any other different areas of your business that you want. It's also a time-saving tool. Some people will say, and I said it too, I don't have the time to sit down and write a book for my business. I'm too busy working in my business. But the truth is, we spend so much time repeating the same information, explaining the same theories and the same questions and the same ideas to our clients, no matter what area you're working in, no matter what business you're in. You spend a lot of your time repeating yourself. And if you would write a book, even just do a quick ebook, PDF, whatever on your site to download, and they can just, here, you have a question, here's the answer. Here's this book. It's got all the answers for you. Let's chat again after you've read it. It's a must-have for any business owner.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because, I've heard the saying, or I've heard it stated to me on several different occasions, everyone has a book in them. Now, when I mention that to other people and other women and my wife and mompreneurs, that niche or niche, depending on where you're from, that I focus on, when I mention that to them, they go, that sounds easier said than done, but I don't know what to put in it. Rochelle, please share those basic components of the book. What should we have? What do we need?
So the first thing you're going to need is concept clarity, and that starts speaking directly. So what do I put in my book? So let's think about this. What topics do you teach or speak about? What ideas do you want associated with your business? And what ideas position you as a trendsetter in your field? So if you are a marketing guru, you don't want to get into the basics of marketing or necessarily even all kinds of social media marketing because there's a lot of information about it. But you have to find what is that one thing that I do that's different, or that one thing that I know that's unique, that even if I give all of the basic information, they would have still learned something new if they already know, if they quote unquote already know everything else. Because, we don't always know as much as we think that we know. And the other thing that will help you with concept clarity is thinking about your passion. Your passion may sometimes not be exactly the same topic as your business, but you can tie the two together. So what are you really excited about? And then finding a way to build that into your business. But then you want to make yourself a promise and make your reader a promise. This is your book's mission statement. What good would your book do for whom? So my promise for my book, The 7-Step Guide to Authorpreneurship, is that I will educate my readers about the publishing process and their responsibilities as authors so that they can have a successful writing career. And I completed this sentence, and Danette, I'm going to give you a link that you can provide to your audience later. I've got a worksheet that will take you through all of this. But there's a sentence that you complete afterwards, which for me it would be the 7-step guide to authorpreneurship will educate writers on how to understand the business of writing and become successful authors. When you've chosen your topic and made that promise, you can then stay focused and maintain your clarity of your concept by remembering your mission. Check any new ideas against your promise and cut them ruthlessly. If it doesn't fit your basic premise, then you don't need to have it. And it's really, sometimes you have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different books in you. You don't have to write them all at once. Pick the smallest, easiest topic. Start there, and I promise everything else it'll have a snowball effect, where once you're done with one book, you're going to have a second book and a third book and a fourth book, and you're just going to be able to keep building on it.
Wow, that is absolutely awesome. I don't know if I mentioned to you, I'm actually in the midst of working or laying out my newest book, The Spouse Factor, what to do when the person closest to you doesn't believe in your vision or dream. And you can imagine the thought patterns or the things that are kind of jumping off people's heads. They think it might be a browbeating session or and all kinds of different things. But I tell them it's a story that I have to tell. But I found myself kind of bouncing all over, just as I did when I initially wrote my other book, Let's Talk Strategies. So I'm glad you mentioned that, and I'm definitely looking forward to that link so that I can get in there myself as well. And it already sounds like I'm going to be hiring you to help me get that thing done. Now, Rochelle, let's talk about the concept of a book. How should a business owner decide on their concept?
So the concept is still, it's going back to the areas that I mentioned before, thinking about what you teach and what you talk about. But you also want to think about what questions do your clients always ask you. And you really want to focus on something that's going to build your business. So for me, I'm a publisher. So I chose the 7-Step Guide to Authorpreneurship because it accomplished 3 major goals for me. 1, it would save me time because instead of me having to answer certain questions repeatedly, I can provide my authors with a free book. 2, it provides unique information that's not found anywhere else. Before I even decided to write a book, I did go out and I researched and I saw what other books are there on this topic. And while they're all great, useful books, several of which, I use religiously, they didn't exactly go through the process the way that I felt every author needs to know it, whether they're traditionally publishing or self-publishing. So I definitely saw that there was a need and that I could provide something unique to the situation. And the third is that it helps position me as an expert in something that I'm passionate about. I really love books, I really love publishing, and I really love helping people. So the 7-Step Guide to Authorpreneurship was an opportunity for me to incorporate all 3 things that are critical to my success as a business owner, but that also I'm passionate about and that make me happy. So when you're thinking about those concepts, you want to just come up with maybe 3 to 5 different things that you think that your clients or your readers should know, and you move from there. Like, just come up with those topics, find the easiest one, and focus on that concept. And then once you focus on that concept, then you make that promise, you complete your sentence, and then you stay focused as you're getting your content written.
I thank so much for that. I tell you, it gives a lot of clarity, too. It kind of clears all of the time wasters, kind of remove those things out the way. So thanks so much for explaining that. Now, that big thing that most of us struggle with, and you mentioned it a little earlier, and that was time, and the importance of, us creating books and how if we write that book, we can kind of really tell the world about us and they can get a chance to really know what we're passionate about and so forth. But, the big thing that most of us complain about in our business, as well as now you're talking about writing a book, is time. Entrepreneurs are known for not having enough time. We overcrowd our day, our week, and our year, everything. How can we quickly create content for our book and make sure it's good with good quality?
So the first thing I'm going to touch bases on is the I don't have time myth. You do have time because we always make time for the things that are important to us, right? So, when you think about this, think about how much time have you spent answering the same questions over and over again? How many free consultations have you done for a client who just wants information? You're already wasting time. And I'm guilty of this too. Obviously I have a business. But what some people don't always know about me is I still work full time, a 40-hour week at a corporate job. And then I come home and I work, 80 hours out. My hours don't match up, so just keep that in mind. But anyway, I work 80 hours at home on my own businesses, right? Because I've got 3 different imprints, so they've all got their own things going on. So beyond that, I have a husband and 2 very young children who are my world, my whole world. Literally, nothing else matters to them. They just want all my time. So, it's really, I understand where you're coming from, and it's a piece-by-piece process. I started small. I came up with the title for my book. I decided on my concept. And the next thing that you do when you're thinking about creating your content is you make an outline. So that was the next thing I did. I thought about the main things that my reader needs to know, and I summarized each of the reading goals. I summarized each of the learning goals for my readers. So, for example, for my first chapter of my book, I said that readers need to understand the editing process, and they need to understand how to polish their manuscripts, right? So the learning goal was, what are the different types of editing needed? How do you hire an editor? And how do you start marketing your book while you're editing? And so it just simply talks about that, and write and polish your manuscript. So if you can make that outline, it sounds really, really easy, and you know that you learned it in school, but it's really important. Another way to do that, though, is mind mapping. Danette, I'm not sure if you're familiar with mind mapping, but you basically start with a central idea, which is the topic of your overall book, and then you're going to come up with all the other things that you think about when you think about that topic. That mind mapping will help you create that outline as well, because while everything on there isn't going to go into your book, it gets those creative juices flowing, and you can start taking those and turning them into a full outline for yourself. The next part about creating content is to just get it done. Get it in writing. Write whatever comes to mind for each of these chapters or topics that you've come up with. And if you have writer's block or you feel confused, you're not sure what to put next, write the question that you want to answer and then move on. And if you can't write it, if you really think, I don't have time to sit down and type, I don't have a computer, if you've got a phone, if you've got any kind of smartphone app, Evernote, Microsoft OneNote, your voice recorder on your own phone, say it out loud. Just record yourself talking. Set it up as you're driving and just drive and talk at the same time. You can then turn it over to someone who's going to transcribe your words and help you get it organized into the chapters that you're looking at. I would recommend, though, thinking about things linearly. So chapter 1, you say that, chapter 1, write and polish your manuscript. And then you go into all these things that I'm thinking about writing and polishing your manuscript. And you don't have to worry about it being perfect. And then the next thing is, anyone can write a book as long as they have the right tools. Your tools involve hiring an editor. They have to work with you to remove the wheat from the chaff. They've got to help you determine what's really great content and what's just junk that you don't necessarily need. And they're going to help you get that perfection out of your book that you're looking for. So the main key here is, when you're thinking about creating content, is just get it out of your head, get it down, either on paper or on a recorder somewhere. But you can't work with what you don't have out in front of you, so you got to get it out.
Yeah, I use the term write the vision and make it plain. It's clearly scripturally based, but it's real. You have to get it out of your head, down on paper. And I'm smiling because all these things that you're mentioning, I remember. It's like it was yesterday, those struggles. 1, trying to be perfect, a perfectionist. 2, crying and complaining because I'm not bad with English, but I was definitely not the one that was good for editing. So I kept trying to write, scratch, start over, write, scratch, start over. Oh, my God, I don't want to turn this over to anyone. And they say, what is wrong with this girl? She writes like she talks. She can't get it together. Forget it. Let me just get it down in writing. Let me make sure you understand my vision, and you fix it. And I'll read it to make sure all is well.
And if you've got your outline, right, because even though you're rambling, you're still rambling about a specific topic. So that helps, right? You don't want to just put it all out there and it's just this big glob of information that's unorganized. You want to organize it, but then once you've got that outline done, you can write whatever you want for each of those chapters that you're thinking fits. And then you decide later when you're going through whether it really fits or not. And then when you're done, the editor's going to come and tell you even more things that still don't fit. It's a process, but you have to get started, and that's what I always try to encourage people to do is just start. Once you start, we can make it through, and you'll get to the end. And then sometimes ending is a problem too, but we'll talk about that a little later.
Yeah, just do it.
Like Nike says.
Yeah. Earlier you mentioned, and you said it a couple times, you mentioned traditional publishing as well as self-publishing or independent publishing. Can you explain the difference, of the different options that we would have for publishing and the best way for us to determine it?
Oh, absolutely. So there are two main types of publishing. I've heard other mini versions, but I'm not going to go into those. The two major types that most authors and writers know about: traditional publishing, which is where you may or may not get an advance. The publisher covers all the production costs, and you're paid a royalty percent per book sale that's made. And then self-publishing is when you invest in yourself. You get to set your own timing, and you earn 100% of your net sales and enjoy full control of your book. Now, with the traditional publishing, you are on someone else's timeline and someone else's budget. The good thing about that is that, you can focus yourself on marketing and focus on other things. The bad thing about it, though, is if you're in a niche market, you're going to miss your boat most likely, because they're going to have, 6 to 9 months, maybe even a year, 2 years, 3 years before a traditional publisher might schedule your book for publishing, because they plan their seasons well in advance. And so if you're a niche author, like I would think most business authors will be, then you're missing the boat, you're missing the timeline, you're missing some of the major advancements, you're missing opportunity to release edition 2, 3, and 4 of your book because you're still waiting on 1. And by the time it comes out, it's going to be obsolete. So for business authors, I do recommend publishing their own book. Even with publishing, though, self-publishing, there's also something called vanity publishing, which is where someone asks you to pay them, $25,000 to publish your book. Your book, they set the price, they set the terms, they provide you with a template cover, and at the end of the day, you've really just wasted a whole lot of money. So you never want to vanity publish. What you really want is someone who's a book packager like Everface Press, like my company, or just another self-publishing company that will allow you to have the control that you need, setting your book price and everything, and having you enjoy custom book covers and custom interior book designs, but that at the end of the day, everything still belongs to you. So those are just a couple of the ways that you can publish. But, as a business owner, like I said, niche equals time-sensitive information, which means you want to get it out sooner rather than later. So, A, write your book. B, go ahead and get it published.
Now, I like that you just mentioned that, because I tell you, I remember the nightmares, and I still feel them quite often when I'm presented, when I get approached from people trying to figure out what my next project or book project is and how do I want to go about doing it, and just the nightmare stories of all of this money that you're spending out of your pocket and you're not getting anywhere. But people automatically think, well, since I'm spending this amount of money, tens and $20,000, surely they should be doing marketing for me. All of the myths and misconceptions, all of the nightmares. So I'm so glad. I'm so glad I stumbled across you, your profile, and saw you out there on the World Wide Web and the social media sphere, and so just agreed with what you had to offer, that we have you here on the show to help us out so that we won't make these same mistakes. Now, being an entrepreneur, when creating books, we're thinking about that number one thing that we see most people reaching for, and that is, if I'm going to write a book, I definitely want it to be a best-selling book. How can an entrepreneur make their business book a bestseller?
Now, I have to start my answer off with a disclaimer. Following these steps does not guarantee success. But one To take it back to the title of my book, The 7-Step Guide to Authorpreneurship, the one major, most important factor for us business publishers and for the majority of authors, right, because I know we've heard about the random success stories, but for the majority of us, the main factor that's going to help your book become a bestseller is you, the author. You have to participate in marketing. There is no amount of money in the world that you can pay someone to do that hardcore marketing for you unless you're doing something that is not necessarily well received by the general public. So, if you think about it, you as an author, you have to be doing something. The number one thing that I want authors to do is focus your message on results. Readers want to know what's in it for them. As a business author, this is especially important because any self-help, personal development book, educational resource, I want to know what's in it for me so I can know whether or not this is useful for me. Now, that promise that I told you about earlier in the show that you wanted to make and that statement that you wanted to create, this is what will help you focus your message on results. That's what people want to hear about. The second thing is start planning your publicity when you start writing. So as you're going through writing your book, you should be thinking about who can I engage with, who is really going to enjoy this book, and who has a clientele similar enough to mine that they will enjoy this book. Let's stop thinking in terms of competition because, to be realistic, a lot of times, if someone's not going to work with you, they're not going to work with you, period. They might be watching you, they might be hawking you or whatever. But if they've decided that they're not going to work with you, that decision's already been made. But does that mean that you should stop someone else from potentially getting that sale? No, it doesn't. So think about people that you can partner with, that you can collaboratively market with, and leverage each other's networks so that you can both be successful, or maybe 3 or 4 of you, but so that everyone can be successful. People don't read just one book in their lifetime. They read multiple. The next thing is make an author video. Focusing your author video on the message of results, who you are as an expert and why they should listen to you, and what the author, or what the reader rather, should gain from reading your book and how they can find it. That author video is very simple. You don't have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on it, but it does make a difference. Some people are very visual. They want to see who you are, or they at least want to hear what you have to say. The other things that I will tell you is get peer feedback for endorsements. Those endorsements help with your credibility. And don't be afraid of giving away too many books. So I tell the story of a woman who had her book, Made to Crave, and she had a Made to Crave 21-day challenge. She was concerned that she was giving away her book, giving up too much information. But the truth is that free information that she provided allowed her to gain $225,000 in book sales over the first 9 months of her book release. And that's because people who were skeptical went through that 21-day challenge. They were able to see the type of value that she had to offer, and they also went out and bought the book. And I'm sure that on top of them going out and buying the book, they also passed that information along. So yes, you want to leverage the power of free. You want to make sure that you do it strategically and make sure that you're getting names and numbers. Make sure you're enjoying your list building as you're going through it. But these are just a couple of the tips that will help you become a best-selling author. And it starts with you coming up with your topic, writing a clear and concise book that delivers on the promise that you're making to your readers, and then actually going out and marketing your book, doing your speaking engagements, going online and potentially doing some posts, engaging with your readers, right? Talk about your passion and the results that they'll get rather than just telling everyone, buy my book, buy my book. That's not how you promote. That's absolutely the wrong way to promote your book. But these are all things that will help you become a bestseller.
Well, thanks so much for mentioning that. Now, you kind of spoken throughout this whole conversation that we're having here. You spoke a lot about the marketing aspect of it, and I know that is a piece of the puzzle that so many of us struggle with as busy entrepreneurs. I think the biggest thought pattern that most would run into on this, Rochelle, is, would you recommend we source this out to someone else? Or do we need to wrap our hands all around this on our own, being that we're busy entrepreneurs? Should we play that major role in the marketing aspect of it, or is it okay to source it out to someone else to take care of that for us?
So I am the queen of outsourcing when it comes to most things. Unfortunately, your contractor or your assistant can't go do your speaking engagements for you. They can't do your interviews for you. They can't, perform all of these in-person experiences at schools and things like that. Those you do have to do yourself. But what you bring to the table and what helps a marketing person to work with you well is when you're able to clearly communicate what it is that you want. And in order to do that, you do have to understand the marketing process, and you have to come up with your own marketing plan. You need to be able to say that as a speaker, let's say for me, I said that I wanted to do some speaking engagements. What are the topics that I wanted to talk about? And then my assistant has been working with it. She's been building and adding new topics and coming up with clever titles and coming up with questions for me so that I can present a thorough media kit when I'm approaching someone about a speaking engagement. But she's only able to take that lead and run with it because I was clear with her about what I wanted to do, and I provided her with the starting information to get it done. So absolutely, I think you should outsource. However, before you outsource anything, you need to understand what it is that you're expecting them to do, what results you're expecting them to gain, and in what time frame you want them to do it in. You can't just say, my book is coming out, plan a launch for me, get it done. No, you need to be able to say, I would like to have 2 local book launch events, 1 book signing. I want to do speaking engagements. And then you go in, because a lot of times as entrepreneurs, if we're wasting time, because I know that sometimes you do, you're on the internet, you're doing searches, and things come up and you're like, oh, yeah, I want to do that, or that seems interesting. The best thing about having someone that's working with you is that you can make yourself a little list or bookmark things. Write your list, send it to her, and say, hey, I want you to approach these people about being on this show. I want you to talk to these folks about being on this show. Send them a query email. That gives her direction, and you feel like you're being heard and that something's being accomplished versus go find me people to speak at and go find me people to talk to. You may not like the results because she doesn't know exactly who you want to go speak to or what you're looking for. So it's a 2-part answer, Danette. Yes, outsource, but create your own plan first. Have a strategy in place, and then you outsource to accomplish the goals of your strategy.
I love that term and that word, strategies. That's what I'm good at. Well,
it's
now,
an important part.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is in everything that we do, business strategies, life strategies, and so forth. Now, you've shared, as I mentioned, so much, during this time here, and I know that the other question that some would have is how can we skip possibly any mistakes? Share a little bit more, because I know that we touched on it a little bit. Can you share some common mistakes in the publishing, our business book or just a book in general, and how can we avoid those common mistakes? We see it all day long.
So I think one of the biggest mistakes that authors can make sometimes, or 2 actually, one is not making sure that you have a professionally done book cover. Sometimes we feel like, that whole just get it done attitude, and we take it to the extreme, where we've got this book cover out there that is not necessarily representative of the quality brand that we're trying to build. And I implore authors, even if you're on a budget, find a designer that's willing to work in your budget. Find a designer that can actually deliver on a quality book cover. Not just that, but research business book covers in your genre so that you can see what a good book cover looks like. What are the best sellers? What do they look like? What do they have in common? And the other thing about book covers is don't be afraid of typeset only. Don't be afraid of a text-only book cover, right? If it's done well with the right colors and maybe the right inflections, or maybe there's a simple graphic on there, that's okay. You don't have to get too literal in your book cover where you've got 5,000 different things competing for the reader's attention. The second biggest mistake that most authors make, and especially if they're self-independent publishing, is not getting a quality editor. And honestly, sometimes they have spent money on it. We rip into authors as readers and say, why didn't they do this? And da-da-da-da. But you don't know. They may have spent $3,000 getting their book edited, but because their book wasn't edited by a qualified editor, they still ended up looking, a little silly. and feeling really bad about themselves because they read these comments, and the comments hurt. Readers' feedback hurts. And so one of the big things is not just hiring an editor, but hiring the right editor. Hiring an editor who has experience in your field, in your genre. Hiring an editor who can work with you, right? Not to change the voice of your manuscript, but to continue your voice and help you remain consistent in your own voice. And hiring an editor that's actually taken the moment to read your manuscript before giving you a quote. Because if they haven't even looked at it, then whatever number they're quoting you, they're going to work until they hit what they feel like is an amount that they should have been paid for the work that they did, and then they're going to stop. Now, there's some great editors that don't do that. There's some great editors that work within your budget. You have to find those people, and that takes some energy. It is one of the sections of my book where I talk about how to hire an editor, questions you should ask, that sort of thing. Like, how do you make sure that you get the right person? You really have to think of it as you're hiring an employee, and you have to be careful.
Well, I so appreciate you for breaking all of this down to us, Rochelle. I'm sure that we'll probably get calls after our show asking how they could reach out to you. They want to learn a little bit more about you and so forth. So please, at this time, please let us know. Tell them what's next for you and how they can reach out and connect with you out on the World Wide Web.
So right now, I'm just still working on the launch for my book, The 7-Step Guide to Authorpreneurship. And I have a second book coming up in July called Becoming an Author, Your Quick Start Guide to Successful Book Launch. And so that second book is going to focus specifically on the basics that you need to do in order to have a successful book launch. Writing your autobiography, making sure that your photo is a professional photo, writing a book summary, that sort of thing, the tools that you need to launch your book. So that's what's coming up for me. And then as far as people reaching out to me, you can always reach me on my blog at www.planwritepublish.com. And that's planwrite, the WRITE, publish.com. And I've got a contact form up there, and it's also got a lot of great information about articles about marketing your book, publishing your book, writing your book. It's got a lot of great tips and hints on there, so it's a really great place for you to start.
Well, thanks so much for letting us know. And I tell you guys, this is how I found her. Of course, I did put some things out there trying to get people on the show because my whole goal is to have quality information, things of substance that can help that business owner take their business to the next level. But connecting with Rochelle out there and watching what she's doing, I learned so much just by hanging out there. In that area out there in social media world there, it's just been a great following. Just watching you and watching your new projects and so forth, and I'm just so excited about what's coming up next for you, because whatever it is that's coming up next, and you've mentioned those things, it's definitely guaranteed to help us, in my opinion. I've seen it, and I echo you. I think really that you are, if we want to use the term bomb.com, you're excellent. You're very good at what you do, and I'm excited. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about your growth, and I'm excited about going through you and utilizing you for my next book projects and so forth.
Yeah, I'm excited about that, too. I did forget one last thing, Danette, if you'll allow me. I do have one other project that's coming up. I'm working with another authorpreneur expert named Sharon Jenkins, and we're working on what's called the Authorpreneurship Project. And we are creating independent, innovative, and iconic 21st century authors. And it's a movement that we're starting out with a magazine and hoping to roll it out to conferences and things like that in the future. But just a quick heads up, Danette, that there may be other opportunities for us to work together as well as on your book directly, because I'm really excited about this project, the magazine that we're doing, and just focusing and taking the concept of being an entrepreneur and the concept of educating authors so that they can be successful and just taking it to the whole next level.
Great. Thanks so much for mentioning that. I'm looking forward to that as well. Now, before I begin to let people know how they can find me, one last time before we end our call, could you please let our listening audience list your books, because you have more than the one that's coming out. Let us know more about all of the books that you've written again so they can go out there and purchase them and where we could actually find them as well.
Okay. The first book is The 7-Step Guide to Authorpreneurship, which is focused on educating authors on the business of writing so they can have a successful publishing career. My second book, which releases in July, and it's available for pre-order currently, is called Becoming an Author, Your Quick Start Guide to Successful Book Launch. And it's exactly what it says. It's your quick start guide to a successful book launch. All the basics that you need to know to plan your book launch and get yourself out there. Just shove yourself out of the mama's nest and fly on your own. It's in that quick start book. My last book, and actually my first book really, is called Write Success, Inspirational Quotes for the Authorpreneur. And I released that last year. It's available on Amazon as well as the other three of my other two books. And it's just basically a collection of quotes to help motivate you and inspire you on your journey to authorpreneurship.
Great. Thanks so much for that. Now, for those of you that would like to know a little more about myself, my name is Danette Moss. I'm also an author. The name of my book is Let's Talk Strategies, Conversations with Millionaires and Highly Successful Entrepreneurs, the Solopreneur's Guide to Success. And I truly do believe that it is just that. It's a compilation of several actual conversations that I've had with, again, as the title mentions, those millionaires and successful entrepreneurs. And the whole goal was to get you guys motivated, along with giving you information that they use to help you take your business to the next level without all the fluff. And I'm also the owner of Let's Talk Strategies, as well as the awesome new Women's Association, and it's called the Association for Women Entrepreneurs. And we're always welcoming women to our organization, so please make sure that you go out there and check my websites out as well. It's letstalkstrategies.com, named after the business, and the Association for Women Entrepreneurs. Well, Rochelle, I'm so excited that you took some time out and stopped by to visit us here and share this awesome, wonderful information. And I'm looking forward to staying connected with you. And I'm looking forward as well to that authorship thing, the program that you guys are launching soon.
Thank you so much for having me, Danette, and for allowing me to work on my book launch here on your show. I appreciate that.
Great. Well, for now, make it a great day. Take care now.
All right.